Welcome to Transcribe Me 2020 Exam Audio Test C. Before you start the exam, be sure to read the set of instructions at the very top of the exam screen to prevent any mistakes. Each question contains detailed information as to how to properly complete the question and section as a whole. Read each question carefully before you continue.
And this is something we like to ask all of our interviewees because it's always interesting to us and to our listeners to hear how everybody started in the hobby. So tell us a little bit about how you first started out with aquariums.
That's a great question. It was as a child. I must have been 8 or 10. My mom had a fish pond. I started keeping live bearers. I think I started out maybe with mosquito fish, which I used to catch in the canals. This was in California. And I had a little 2-gallon bowl and kept swordtails, mollies, and guppies at one time or another. I remember being absolutely fascinated when they gave birth, and all those little swordtail babies, bright red. And then when the black mollies had babies, the little black babies, I just couldn't get enough.
That is a neat experience.
I started out with live bears as well, and I remember the same fascination with the little babies.
Yeah, I remember watching them pop out of the mother. I was just absolutely entranced.
So did you keep on with aquariums up to now, more or less?
At one time, these guppies that I had, they had a horrible disease that I couldn't get rid of. And I remember being out of the hobby for many years because of that. But I kept coming back to them, and then I started back up in 1987 with the planted tanks. But I've had tanks off and on all of my life.
And I guess this is a good lead into our next question. What led you to develop your method, or what is widely known as the Wallstead method?
Well, I'll go back to my childhood here. I lived next to a dairy farm, and they had a big stock tank in the yard with the cows, and it was filled with Vallisneria. This stock tank was out in full sun. The substrate was probably manure from the cows, but the plants in there, the Vallisneria, it was like a forest. They were bright emerald green. There was no algae in there. They were growing like crazy. It was just a beautiful sight out in the middle of this feedlot. So that kind of gave me, something that I always returned to when I was having trouble growing plants later on as an aquarium hobbyist. I tried to grow plants in the aquarium, and I did what everybody recommended, put gravel in and get your plants. It just never worked. So when I got back into the hobby in 1987, I decided that I would just do something really different, and I kept that idea of the stock tank with that beautiful growth of Vallisneria in my mind. And I thought, well, none of the aquarium methods have worked. Why don't I just do what I had seen before? So I set up a 20-gallon in front of the window with sunlight, and then I just put soil in the bottom, and I couldn't believe it. The plants just grew like crazy. I'd never seen plants grow like that in an aquarium, and that's kind of how it all started. It was like night and day from what I had remembered in my earlier failures. Once you see plants really growing, it was just spectacular.
I can imagine, yeah. That's a fascinating story, that the method was inspired by the stock tank. I'd never heard of that.
And my method, it leaves the nutrients in the tanks and lets the plants have them. And that keeps the fish healthy, and it's just a completely different method.
You could almost call it the organic aquarium.
A very good term. That's it. It's the organic aquarium. I mean, the soil is a tremendous supply of carbon dioxide.